Yes.
No practicals, or the practicals were?
There were very limited practicals, that's what I would say. But there were some, but they were limited.
Does that help?
I think I like to look at engineering and all degrees from a different perspective because we are in a world where we are at the precipice of life-changing technologies, okay? And for us to harness these transformative forces, what we need to do is to develop kids or students that are problem solvers. So I don't care whether you do accounting or you do medicine or you do engineering. You're being trained to solve a problem. So when you see a problem, you should have an intuitive way of addressing that problem. And I think to me, that is what the 21st century education should address. The human, because we humans are very curious. We look up in the sky and we see, we know there are billions of stars, billions of galaxies. We want to say, what is our role in this universe? So religion serves a very good purpose in that, but I do think that it can be abused. And that's what is happening in Ghana right now, where you have the disaster in Kintampo. It's attributed to the gods of the river. You have the pollution of the waters is attributed to the gods, but they are actually data that shows why you're having these problems, right? And science, especially technology, has done marvelously for mankind. If you look at the poverty rate, is dropped exponentially, right? And it's because of technology. The average person on this continent has a cell phone that has a technology equivalent to what Bill Clinton had in the White House 15 years ago. That's unthinkable. They don't have drinking water. They don't have any sanitation, but they have a very sophisticated technology. Yeah. Science has brought us immunization. So it's actually extended life. We've been able to reduce we increase birth rates, reduce child mortality. Technology has been an enabler for good in the world. So I don't think the evidence shows otherwise, but its environment can create a situation where to make it seem as if science, there's some mysterious force out there, and it's very difficult to understand.
What can happen for there to be change in the way we view things generally as a society?
So that comes to the lecture that I'll be giving on Wednesday, where we're going to look at what we call exponential technologies. It's when people look at what is happening, and then cell phones are appearing, Facebook is appearing, all these wonderful things are appearing, they think it's magical. But we can predict exactly, I can tell you in 2025, the computer that we're going to build is going to be as capable as a human being. I can tell you in 2100, a single computer would have the brain of everybody on Earth.
And artificial intelligence will play a big part.
Artificial intelligence is going to play a very big part. We know, I can tell you the exponential curve, what is happening. And it's been happening on the clock. Every predict that we do happens on the clock because we know these things are just doubling every 18 months. And I think once people are able to look at the data, and that's why people like Google and other places are doing very well, because they're looking at the data and they say, hey, I know in 2 years' time, this is the capability that is going to be developed. So let me plan to it. When people understand that it's not magical, it's actually predictable what is going to happen, I think they will wake up to that. And that's what I want to talk about. Ghana needs more futurist than spiritualist. Right now.
And I like that. Ghana needs more futurist than spiritualist.
And it's just, right now we flipped. We have more spiritualists than futurists. Because if you go to most companies around the world, they have a department of the future. Because the future is, you can predict it within certain bounds, and you can plan to that. In developing countries right now, you don't have any office of the Ministry of the Future. And the Ministry of the Future should tell you what educational programs you should have. You should be driven by the future, not by the past. If you look at what we're doing across Africa right now, we're teaching kids for the 18th century, not the 21st century. We're not looking ahead, we're teaching backwards. Because
that's very ominous.
Yes, it is. And that's why you need futurists, people that know what technology. We are in the academy right now, we have a lot of brilliant people here. You go to CSR, the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, we have actually brilliant people that can advise government and MPs to understand the trend of technology. We are at a very critical point where we are on the linear curve. So most people think humans the way we perceive the world, the way we are taught about the world is linear. That means go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But actually, we're operating in an exponential world. Things are just going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 64, and then you can keep going, right? And things are not changing linearly, they're changing exponentially.
It's frightening. Is there hope?
There is
as far
hope.
as our education is concerned.
There is great hope because things are changing exponentially. You have a chance to leapfrog the people that are ahead of you if you can look at the data and see what is going on and try to harness the benefits of the technology. But if you don't, the consequences can be very grave. And what we are seeing is people that are on the exponential curve and those that are on the linear curve, what is going to happen, for example, we have good technologies in 3D printing, robotics, artificial intelligence. So if you want to build a factory today, in the next few years, factories are going to move from the developing world to back to the developed world, because you can use robot and artificial intelligence 3D printers to produce a cost-effective product, better than any human can produce in China. So when you have that and then you want to build a factory in Ghana, do you have the workforce? Have you trained your workforce to be able to adapt to those technologies? We're changing from a world of what we call scarcity to almost abundance, what we call the post-scarcity environment.
Manpower will no longer be a requirement, will not be an important factor of production.
So when I talk about post-scarcity, what we're talking about is we are going to produce things in abundance with minimal human interaction. So you have a factory, for example, people are very familiar with Valco, I don't know what the new name is. Yes, where we produce aluminum. These days, a similar company in the States or anywhere would have only 6 employees. Everything is done by the robot. So there's no way you can go back and say you're going to build factories of that size anymore, where it's going to employ thousands and hundreds of people anymore, right? Because things have changed. You can train people to program the robots, write apps, to be able to do other things that should be gainfully employed. So you have to look at the future and plan your education accordingly. So when people are left behind, what we're seeing in the States and other places, you know, in Netherlands, when they had this election, they were protesting against what? Immigration and what? Robotics.
Robotics, yeah.
Okay? Why do you think that is? Because people have not been retrained, because if you go to Rotterdam right now, the whole port is controlled by robots. The ships come in, the robots, the cranes go in, pick it up, put this on the train, move things, and all the humans are in the background, right? So if the workforce has not been retrained to be able to do other things, you are going to have a situation where you have minimal human involvement, and that leads to another one that happened in Switzerland 2 years ago, where they voted for the basic pay. They tried to put it on the ballot that every citizen should get a basic pay, right? The rationale behind it is that we're going to get to a point where we can't employ everyone.
Because
robots are doing the job. Because humans, the economy that we have right now is a scarcity economy, right? Things are scarce, somebody can do it, and they can control how they do it in a limited form, right? So that the prices can go up. Now, it's flipped. You have more of it. What do? It's just like data. Google has to give you everything for free. Facebook has to give you everything for free. And they have to figure out what they can get from you to make money. So the economy is flipping. Obviously, you're not going to get abundance everywhere, but you're going to get abundance in a lot of areas that developing countries used to be able to manufacture. And that is going to be a big game changer.
So the problems about Donald Trump will say jobs have been shipped off from the United States to China will no longer exist, because the United States can now produce without requiring the manpower in China.
Yes. So if you look, I think CNN had a headline like a few months ago, don't fear Mexico or China, fear robots.
Let's talk about robots. How realistic is reliance on robots for work, for production, and all of that? So
the reliability of robots that we see right now, you know, we have a company in San Jose that produces, you know, things to straighten your teeth, and they produce 16 million products with 6 people. Everything is 3D printers and robots, and they work 24/7. The reliability of the machines that we have right now are incredible.
What can robots do, and what can they not do as of now?
So right now, robots can do a lot of things, but one thing that with the artificial intelligence is the limitation right now is computation, right? And that's why we know by 2025, when computation gets to a certain level, the robots will have the brain of a human being. So we're limited by computation and by some miniaturization of sensors. But robots can do a lot of the work that we do right now. I would say probably more than 90% of the work we do. Robots, and when we talk about robots, we don't only talk about physical robots, we talk about software robots. When you do a search on Google or search on Yahoo, a robot goes in and then goes around, and then a software robot agent goes in and searches for the data and gives you your answer. Okay. So robots are everywhere.
So in my mind, the robots are what I see.
Yes.
The human-like figures that I see,
yes.
That's not only robots.
Yes. Just, a 3D printer is a robot. A robot is basically something that, can extend the skills of man. We started robots on this continent, right? When our forefathers and mothers used to walk this continent, they saw nuts they couldn't break with their teeth. What did they do? They got a rock and then broke it up. Then they wanted to weed and trim the trees. What did they do? They got iron ore. They built cutlasses and hoes and they cut it. So we started extending the human being with all these tools. And then we got to a point, we came out with electronics, we came out with motors, and we keep adding to the robots. We came out with software. So we came out with cameras, and we keep building up on it. So robots started from the cradle of human being. Basic. And as we get more technology.
Rudimentary.
Yes. So that's what robots are. So most people perceive robots as, you have this humanoid walking around, or you have this robotic arm moving around. Robots can be a purely software agent, or can have both the physical manifestation and the software manifestation. But robots are not taking your jobs. What is taking your jobs is lack of skills.
That's a very difficult one to believe, because if the robot was not produced, I would have my job. So
that's not necessarily true, because the problem you're trying to solve with technology is solve the scarcity problem. Our whole economy is based on, technology is based on making things abundant, right?
Yeah.
So you develop the technology to have abundance, right? When you get to abundance, you have a different problem that you have to solve. So the problem space has been transformed. So as you develop more technology, you should be training, the skills should be moving to the right. Becoming, people that can use the technology, people that can develop more technology, people that can do basic science, people that can program. So your skill set has to shift with the times, because we know one thing is constant: change. You cannot stand still. There's change. And for you to address change, you have to move with it. You can't stand still.
Now, let's talk about this.
I do believe that we need more futurists in the country, people that are thinking about the future, that explain things, and we should operate the country like we operate the Fortune 500 company, where people have a futuristic department, where they go there and consult and say, this is what is going to happen. Plan your policies according to that. Look forward.
What do you want to see in our schools?
So one thing I want to see in the schools, I want schools to be tailored more towards the 21st century. The 21st century is educating people to solve problems. In the 18th century, we had the Industrial Revolution. We're training people for specific skills to build specific products.
Produce.
Yes. So you're just training, it's just like a line. I want a civil engineer, I want to build a structure, they have to do this. In the 21st century and beyond, we're dealing with something else. We're dealing with technology has matured to a point that we're trying to add value or take different technologies that converge to have the different products, because now we get into an abundance mode. Before we had a scarcity. Right now we are between scarcity and abundance. So I don't know how you can be educating people for scarcity. There's not a scarcity in communications. There's abundance of data. So you should be training people to analyze data. You should be training people to look for patterns in data. And that's the kind of shift we need. It's going to take a long time to do this shift, but the thinking should be start now. You cannot delay for another decade, it'll be too late.